In 2013, a major retail corporation that you've heard of experienced a catastrophic data breach. I am talking about one of the most legendary hacks of all time. The attackers did not breach the primary corporate firewall directly. Instead, they compromised through a third-party HVAC system. This vendor possessed a legitimate remote access credentials to the corporate network. And by stealing those credentials, the adversaries gained access to the internal network and exfiltrated millions of dollars of credit card records. Now, this is a real-world scenario, and it illustrates how threat vectors extend far beyond the traditional network perimeter. Understanding supply chains, network pathways, vulnerable software, it's all critical to modern cybersecurity defense. Supply chains represent an entire network of entities, resources, and activities involved in creating or delivering products and services. Now, threat actors target these supply chains because security controls at third-party vendors is often less robust than those that primary target, right? Like, I work in IT, and I focus on the security of the things that I touch, not necessarily other things that are provided for me. Now, managed service providers or MSPs are highly attractive targets. Now, also, side note, great place to start your career. You'll touch lots of technology. Now, because MSPs manage IT infrastructure for multiple clients, a single compromise at an MSP can grant access downstream to lots of organizations. Hardware supply chains attacks involve tampering with physical components during the manufacturing or transit of them. Now, malicious firmware or hardware keyloggers can be installed before the equipment ever reaches it, right? I use my Logitech keyboard at work because it's what was provided for me. Now, what if down the line someone tampered with that cable, added a keylogging software, and they're getting all my juicy passwords? I've never heard passwords talked about as juicy, but maybe we'll keep that as a reoccurring thing. So you see, when developers integrate compromised third-party code into applications, the vulnerability is distributed to all users of that software. So I want you to think of just how important thinking of the full supply chain is as a security professional. Vulnerable software provides direct mechanisms for threat actors to execute on unauthorized code. You see, legacy systems present a major vulnerability vector. Legacy software is defined as older technology that is no longer supported or patched by the vendor, and there's way more of that at major companies being used than you think. Now, you see, unpatched software in active systems, that prevents a severe risk, even if it's not legacy. There's new stuff coming out. People will just be super behind on doing those patches, and a lot of times you have to do, like, let's say you're on a version 7, right, and you need to get a version 9. You can't jump from 7 to 9 all the time. You got to do 7, plan that maintenance window, move it to 8. Now there's an 8.5 that you got to move to, and there's this whole thing, and companies get really behind on, and that's why patch management is very important. Now, additionally, zero-day vulnerabilities are flaws that are unknown to the vendor, and they don't have an available patch, and sometimes the zero-day vulnerabilities are out, but there still isn't a patch, right? Firmware vulnerabilities in Internet of Things are frequently overlooked. Many smart devices run outdated firmware with hard-coded credentials, making devices easy to target for botnet recruitment. Network threat vectors encompass pathways that allow unauthorized access to data transmission systems. Also, networks are my thing, by the way. You know, there's a couple Cisco certs up there. Now, all right, wireless networks represent a significant risk due to the physical propagation of radio frequencies. Adversaries can perform radio frequency jamming to cause a denial of service attack or deploy rogue access points to intercept sensitive data. Wired networks, while physically connected, remain vulnerable to unauthorized physical access and internal threats. Side note here, I think it's Dave Baumel has this Wireshark course. The Wireshark is a popular tool used by network professionals ethically and unethically. Now, he's got a course where you get to scan some stuff. I'll link it down below with Wireshark and see how you intercept a call. Very cool. Now, cloud environments introduce unique vectors such as misconfigured storage buckets and insecure application programming. Remote access solutions include virtual private networks, VPN. These are heavily targeted, and while we traditionally think like VPN, I'm encrypting all my traffic, this makes this super secure. Not necessarily, because when you VPN into a network, you get access to more of that network than you probably need. That's where zero trust comes in. Now, networks are heavily targeted because of weak authentication methods on remote access portals. This allows adversaries to establish persistent footholds within the internal network. Now, This is not me saying VPNs are bad. They are good, and you're more secure on a VPN than you are necessarily just on like public Wi-Fi. But there's flaws with it, right? It doesn't mean everything's perfect, and that's why like the industry is moving towards zero trust access. All right, here's our judgmental learning. Can the distinction between a software supply chain attack and a vulnerable software exploit be clearly articulated? Can you teach this to someone else? If you can't, maybe you need to rewatch the video. Additionally, little shout out here, in the Udemy, you will have access to a PDF that is a study guide where each of these concepts will be written down, right? Notes that are already made for you. This is not me saying don't take your own notes, but it's just a resource that's out there. Additionally, there's additional practice tests there as well.